Suicide bombings in the scales of Islamic law. The question was posed to the Hadeeth, Shaykh Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albanee, rahimahullah, that it has been reported from your eminence that you do not sanction suicide missions. We therefore seek from you a clarification of the issue. The answer: it is uniformly known amongst the scholars that it is not permissible for a Muslim to commit suicide to relieve himself of a calamity, or financial painful illness that is terminal, or any other thing that has befallen him. Suicide to relieve oneself from these types of hardships is without a doubt haram. There are hadiths reported in Saheeh Al-Bukhaaree and Muslim that imply that a person taking his own life by consuming poison or piercing himself, or any other means that result in his death, shall result in him being punished with that same mode of death until the day of resurrection. Some of the scholars have understood that the person who commits suicide dies as a Kaafir, or an unbeliever, since the one who commits such an act has malice and distain for his Lord because of the calamities he has faced without patience. Without a doubt, a true Muslim could never reach the level whereby he contemplates such a heinous act, let alone carry out the act of taking his own life. In most cases, the individual who takes his own life is not a mu'min, a true believer. Yet it is conceivable that a Muslim may be affected by a contagious evil ideology that may lead him to commit suicide. It is conceivable that such an act would take place. Due to this, we say with full conviction and certainty that he, the one who commits suicide, is not a true believer. This is similar to the one who abandons prayer out of stubborn rejection of its legislation and passes away a Muslim named Ahmed bin Muhammad. But if it was known that he disavowed prayer, then he is not to be buried within the Muslim burial ground. The same condition and verdict is for the one who commits suicide and it becomes known that his suicide was due to malice and disdain for his Lord because of the calamities he faced. We now turn our attention to suicide missions. These missions became infamously known around the world because of the Japanese practice of kamikaze. A man would hurl his warplane towards an American naval vessel, effectively destroying himself along with the plane and as many enemy soldiers as he could muster. All suicide missions in our current time are unsanctioned deeds that are all to be considered haram, prohibited. The suicide missions may be of the type that renders its practitioner eternally in the fire, or it could be the type that renders its practitioner to be from those who shall not reside eternally in the fire, as I have just explained. But to view these suicide missions as being a means to draw near to Allah, meaning a praiseworthy act of worship, by killing oneself today for his land or his country, then we say no, it is not an act that is praiseworthy. These suicide missions are not Islamic, period. In fact, I say today that which represents the Islamic reality, not the reality that is sought by a few of the improperly overly active Muslims, that there is no jihad in the Islamic lands at all. Surely there is combat in numerous Muslim countries, but there is no jihad that is established under a solely Islamic banner, and that is established upon the Islamic regulations. From these missing regulations are that a soldier is not permitted to act as he individually and singularly wishes. He is not permitted to decide for himself what it is that he is to do. Rather, he is to be bound to an order from a commander. In turn, this commander is not an individual who claims the position of leadership for himself and makes himself commander. Rather, the commander is delegated the authority from the Khalifa of the Muslims. So where is the Khalifa for the Muslims today? Where is a Khalifa, or for that matter a ruler who raises solely the banner of Islam and calls Muslims to draw near him and perform jihad in the way of Allah alone? As long as we affirm that jihad, according to Islamic regulations, must fulfill the prerequisite of it being solely under the banner of Islam, and we find that this banner does not have a commander during the current era, then we state that an Islamic suicide is not permitted as it is performed today. I am well aware of the fact that suicide was known in the past generations of those who fought with spears, swords, and arrows. Some of the forms of that warfare resembled suicide, dueling to the death. Examples of this was when an individual would surge forward and face a large contingent of unbelievers and polytheists, striking them from the right and the left, and all the while knowing that few would escape this predicament safely. Therefore, is that action permitted? We answer that at times it would be permitted and other times it would not be permitted. If the commander of the army is the messenger of Allah and he gave permission to that individual, then it is permitted for him. But for that individual to decide for himself, then it is not permitted, because it is considered a perilous, hazardous action in the least, if we do not say that it is a gamble as well. Therefore, such an act is not permitted without the explicit order of the Muslim ruler or the Khalifa of the Muslims. Why? What should be done is that the ruler or the Khalifa should assess the situation with great care. He is the one who has the knowledge of when it is most appropriate to attack the enemy. 100 Muslims facing 1,000 or more or less of the enemy. He is the one to order the advance, knowing that from them there may be tens who will die, and knowing that the eventual victory is for the Muslims. Therefore, when the commander of the army of the Muslims delegated that duty by the Muslim Khalifa orders a single soldier to employ a particular action from the contemporary means of suicide, missions during the battle, then this is to be considered jihad in the way of Allah. But for a young man, blind to the realities and intricacies of war, to decide on his own, as we often hear, to climb the face of a mountain and enter into a fortified location used by the Jews, and kill some of them, and be killed in the process, what is the benefit of such a deed? These are solely individualized acts that do not have a positive consequential result that is benefiting to the Islamic call. Therefore, we say to the Muslim youth, protect your lives on the condition that you use it in learning your deen and your Islam. Become acquainted with it properly and act according to it to the best of your abilities. This course of action and deed, slow and tedious as it may seem, is the deed that shall bear the desired fruit that is sought after by all Muslims, regardless of their varying ideologies and methodologies. All are in agreement that Islam should be what we use to govern, but they dispute in the path to that objective. Surely, the best guidance is that of Muhammad. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك.